All right, California back in the news again with regards to the utilization of artificial intelligence. And I'm not saying that the issues California constantly brings up with regards to open source, or in this case, deepfakes, and this whole lawsuit between the heads of Gavin Newsom versus Elon Musk is a bad thing. We have to have a public discussion about the responsible utilization of artificial intelligence. And at the key crux of the at issue is deepfakes. And I think a lot of us are somewhat worried about deepfakes, the ability to trick someone that someone said something. And a lot of this stuff goes viral. And what's really bad, especially like during election times, is a political figurehead saying something adverse to any sort of policies, some misinformation being disseminated that could cause a on the fence voter to decide one way or the other because of what they saw. And that's really what the state of California is arguing around deepfakes. And Elon Musk posted something about the previous Democratic candidate, Kamala Harris, saying something that she didn't say. Now, on its surface, you're like, okay, yeah, we probably should stop a lot of this. But it's not just at this point artificial intelligence that we become worried about. Now, my background is in law. Went back to school to study AI and machine learning. So I figure I can give kind of a unique perspective on both sides of this. And yes, artificial intelligence needs a lot of regulation, but you can't regulate it and create the inhibition of the utilization of it while also doing so in other aspects of our life. And that is our First Amendment here in the United States, freedom of speech. And for a long, long, long time, parody and satire is something that is protected speech. The argument on Elon Musk's behalf is that the deepfake used of Kamala Harris, and if you go watch it, I'm not going to share it here, it's clearly parody. I think a reasonable person, which is a reasonable person standard, if you were to put it up in front of a jury, could decide that this isn't real. Now, would 100% of people understand that it's not real? No. But would a reasonable person, someone with just the average amount of common sense, know that it's fake? Yes. And because of that, it's protected speech of parody and satire. There was a famous case where The Onion was brought against of parody and satire. And again, it was found what The Onion does is protected speech. And that's what the judge found on a previous deepfake. It is some great findings in this. So while a well-founded fear of a digitally manipulated media landscape may be justified, this fear does not give legislators unbridled license to bulldoze over the long-standing tradition of critique, parody, and satire protected by the First Amendment. So yes, at issue, responsible AI utilization, trying to stop deepfakes from causing adverse effects, negative adverse effects, but through the spreading of misinformation. Sure. But once again, critique, parody, and satire are protected by the First Amendment. They go on to say that the level that the bill has for the state of California is too subjective and in the mens rea of the person posting it. Mens rea is the intent. You really can't decide on behalf of the other person what their intent is. It just didn't rise to any sort of objective standard where, again, the average reasonable person could determine if something was intended to cause harm and spread misinformation. The record demonstrates that the state of California has a strong interest in preserving election integrity and addressing artificially manipulated content. However, California's interest and the hardship the state faces are minimal when measured against the gravity of First Amendment values at stake and the ongoing constitutional violations that the plaintiff, in this case, state of California, and other similarly situated content creators experience while having their speech chilled. Speech chilled. Actually, I don't know why that resonates kind of funny with me. Speech chilled. Anyway, you got to be careful that anything that you intend to put forth to stop or inhibit the utilization of something can't adversely affect something that has broader importance. In this case, the very, very important First Amendment here in the United States, protecting freedom of speech. Anytime any sort of bill is proposed, you really have to analyze, okay, the history of it. What has been done to bring forth the need for this bill and the passing of this legislation, in this case, the prohibition of deepfakes on political figures. The theory of its application. Okay, we put this bill in place. In theory, how will this be enforced by the executive branch and then further judged by the judicial branch? And in that case, that's what we have. Usually there's also the application in the future, but because this is just a proposed bill, then we don't know what the actual application is. So we're stuck in this analysis of the history and theory of how this law would then be enforced. And in this case, I think the judge did the correct thing in stopping it, because it's the impact of what this bill would do is minimal compared to the adverse effects of how the First Amendment would be treated.